Oh, see, classic right there, 88 Shade 45. It's the all-out show with Rudy Jude and Lord Sear. We had special guests in L.A.
Yeah, we got Julia Beverly here. You guys might know her from Ozone Magazine.
Uh-oh.
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing?
I'm good.
But you're here to talk about Sweet Jones, Pimp C's Trill life story. This is a giant fucking book that you wrote.
Yes, I am officially an author of a giant fucking book.
This mother,
That's
it's
awesome,
like the
right?
Bible. Like, yo, it's how long is this?
It's 726 pages.
This is for the YouTube.
But it has a lot of pictures.
Thank
150
you.
pages of pictures.
I
love pictures.
If you can't read, you can still enjoy the book.
Don't let her don't get it twisted, y'all. The print is mad small. She got a bunch of info.
It is like a Bible. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a long story. Pimp had a long life. He had a lot going on.
He had a full life, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, he did have a full life. And aside from that, there's a lot of other stories that are kind of tied into his story as far as music history and not only that, but the prison system in Texas, the music business behind the scenes, transactions that go on. There's a lot of kind of subtopics that I kept branching off into other things. I kept having to return to the main subject, which was Pimp C. But there's a lot of things covered in the book.
I was getting ready for the interview, and I was like, the good news is anywhere you open up the book, there's something interesting going on.
Yeah.
But there was so much. I was like, how are we gonna do this? One thing I didn't know about Pimp C was that he was bipolar.
Yeah. He was actually diagnosed bipolar on medication. He thought he was schizophrenic too. That was something his mom talked about. And the interesting thing, because his mom kind of like co-wrote the book with me. She's kind of the narrator, throughout. Yeah. And so of course his mom had a much different perspective than maybe the average rap fan. But just talking with her about how these were intertwined, like the fact that he had these mental health issues was what made him a great artist, in her opinion. So she described it as his best friend and his worst enemy.
I find that a lot of times my favorite artists
are crazy, yes.
Are crazy or in a lot of pain.
Right.
It's cool to see Pimp C through his mother's eyes, because I think that she has an honest look at him. There was something, I was reading something in there about how she was saying how he was shy, and that how he had personas to help him come out of his shyness. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, I felt the same way that she was very honest about his struggles and his pros and cons, I guess you could say, his strengths and weaknesses. But she talked about how he was really very introverted and shy, and if you met him in person, you kind of could see that he was really a quiet, kind of introspective kind of person. But he would create these characters. So the Pimp C character was just one of many. Like, he actually had like 7 or 8 different aliases. So like, he would literally check into a hotel like under a different name every night, like depending on how he felt at that particular time. You have letters from prison where he was signed each letter with a different name. So he had all these different characters, and she said that he kind of created them because it was a way for him to kind of escape his own shy nature and become someone else, so to speak. So I think a lot of people are like that. A lot of people have, especially in the music business. You have to kind of create a persona, or just people in everyday life. When you get up and present yourself to the world, you're kind of putting on a facade, and some people are just a little more extreme than others. But I think a lot of artists are similar to that, and that's why I thought Pimp C was such an interesting person to write a book on, because he wasn't just one-dimensional. Like, he had so many different sides to him.
It seemed to me that he felt, I guess, marginalized by rap. Mm-hmm. He was coming up in a time when Southern rap really wasn't getting a bunch of shine. Like, for instance, Big Pimpin', that was what, 2000? Like, mm-hmm. They'd been out since,
yeah, they started out
90s.
Like 91, 92. Yeah. So yeah, he always felt like the East Coast had kind of a, looked down on him as being a, kind of country, and like some of their early reviews were just kind of ridiculing them, like they were just like some hicks from off in the country type thing. And so he always had a kind of a chip on his shoulder against like the East Coast media in particular. And a lot of other artists talked about that too, and not necessarily just in the South. Like, that was something that Too Short talked about, how even being on the West Coast, he would sell millions of records, but would not get the same respect or the same coverage that maybe an East Coast rapper who sold, 250,000 units. They'd be on the cover of every magazine and just, glorified to a different level because it was so regional at that time. I mean, it still is a little bit, but now, of course, we have the internet and we have a lot of other ways to kind of see what's happening in other parts of the country. But at that time, it was very isolated. So people in New York were not really aware that, they're not at a UGK show in Lafayette, Louisiana, where there's 3,000 people singing along with every word of every song. So when you can't see it, it's kind of hard to explain.
And
the
they're in
movement that's
their
happening.
clubs and they're getting excited about their rappers and
Right. So Pimp talked about how he got to a certain point and he's like, I just decided I don't care what you think. I'm just going to create my own music for my own people. And that's really how Southern rap came to be, because a lot of people kind of reached the same conclusion, like that they don't respect us. And you saw that at the Source Awards, I think was 95, when Andre 3000 got up and said, the South has something to say. And that kind of sparked something in a lot of people in the South that said, if we're not going to get the respect that East Coast rappers get, then we'll just create our own, kind of our own culture.
Because they did get shunned, I feel like it made them stay truer to their sound, and ultimately it benefited them. And if you go back and listen to UGK, it sounds like UGK, and it's a timeless sound.
Definitely. Well, that was another thing that we covered a lot when we did Ozone Magazine, and I remember doing an interview with Pitbull, and he talked about how it was this is before he became like an international, superstar. He was more of a rapper at that time, but he talked about the fact that record labels were not really paying attention to them as a good thing, because it kind of forced them to develop their craft. And so you're spending years, on the underground, you're building a fan base, you're finding out what works, what doesn't work. So by the time you actually hit the mainstream, like you're ready, like you've spent years, developing. So that's kind of the blessing and the curse, because sometimes artists will get a song, like Trinidad James came out after he just decided to become a rapper, and like 10 months later he's like a star, but you don't have the time to, he didn't have that same time to develop a fan base and things like that. So it can be a blessing when you are overlooked at first. I think Pimp looked at it that way.
He felt during the Big Pimping video shoot, they were put up in separate hotels than Jay-Z.
Right.
Some of the entourage were kind of speaking to them in a condescending manner.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, that was one thing that Pimp said, that he went to the Big Pimpin' video shoot, which originally it was supposed to be in Trinidad, but he wouldn't fly over water. And he was opposed to doing the song in the first place. He really didn't want to do a song with Jay-Z. He felt like it would make them pop stars and it would kind of be like selling out. But he agreed to eventually do the song. They filmed his part in Miami. So he gets to Miami, pulls up to the National Hotel on South Beach, which, I mean, it's a decent hotel. But he, apparently found out that Jay-Z and his whole crew was staying at this like 5-star, downtown. And so he got upset that, he felt like there was just not the same, if you want to be on a song with me, if you respect me, if we're peers, like we should be staying at the same place. Like,
yeah, that's understandable. Yeah.
He just had he was a very principled guy. So he would have his mind made up, this is what it is. And he wouldn't really, change his mind once his mind was made up. So he went over there, and I guess Jay-Z said, this is according to his mom, by the way, this is the story his mom told me. But he said he went over there and, Jay-Z offered to get them a room there. And so he was like, okay, well, he let it slide. So, but yeah, I heard there was definitely some interesting moments at that video shoot, and just kind of the culture shock of this, New York entourage meeting this Texas, they kind of, some people felt like they were kind of condescending towards them, not Jay specifically, but people in his crew. Like his mom said that they kind of expected them to show up with like cowboy boots and cowboy hats, and just kind of had a perception of how they were going to be coming from Port Arthur, Texas. So I wish I could have been at that video shoot. It definitely sounded like quite an adventure.
I was a UGK fan, and I was really surprised to hear them on a Jay-Z album, and I thought that was cool. But it kind of like when I heard the behind the scenes, I was like, oh man, that was like strategic move on Jay-Z's part to get some of the South going. That's what I figured after that. I was like, well played, Jay-Z.
Yeah, I mean, it benefited him as well as it definitely benefited UGK, but I think it, somebody, I quoted Matthew Knowles in the book. He wasn't talking about Big Pimpin' specifically, but just rap collaborations. He was saying it's basically just a merger, like a corporate merger. You have two different audiences, you bring them together, and everybody wins. So
a lot of times, it seemed like Pimp C would have problems with these rappers. It seems to me that Bun B was a bit more diplomatic, but
Bun is definitely more diplomatic.
but
yeah.
they always were together. Bun B never was like, nah, disagree with them in front of people.
Right.
Did that put stress on the relationship behind the scenes?
Yeah, it definitely did. I mean, the Jeezy situation would be a good example of that.
What's that situation?
So Pimp and Jeezy, I don't know if you'd even call it a beef because it never fully like turned into a beef, but they definitely had issues. Pimp was upset because he had done a verse for Jeezy for free, and then when they were working on their album, he was contacting Jeezy to try to get a verse. He just assumed that he would get a verse back.
You're trading verses here.
Yeah, and so first, like, he couldn't get in touch with him, and he was getting the runaround. Oh, call the manager, and so he was feeling disrespected, and then Jeezy quoted him a price and sent him an invoice, and so he felt
Extra.
disrespected, and on top of that, he felt like I'm one of the people that kind of paved the way for you to be able to do what you're doing, and so I should get that respect as an OG, and so he spoke out against Jeezy, although he never said his name, so it was kind of like a It was an interesting situation. It never really came to a head. But yeah, Bun had a good relationship with Jeezy. So of course that put him in a weird position. And I mean, Bun and Pimp, they definitely had their issues at different points, but they never, publicly, they always presented a unified, UGK was a unified front. And so I think it's comparable to, a lot of people compared it to like a family relationship or, brothers. Like you might be mad at your brother, but if somebody else tries to come at your brother, you're going to defend him. So that was kind of the relationship they had, where they were definitely very different people. And I could see how a lot of the things Pimp did would kind of put Bun in an awkward position. Like there was a show out here in LA at the Zune barbecue that UGK did, which was shortly before Pimp passed, but Bun had some kind of deal that he was working out with Microsoft, so he's trying to get paid and handle the business, and then Pimp comes out on stage and there's all these police out here, and he comes out and says, fuck the police in front of all these police at this Microsoft show. So Pimp kind of enjoyed being the troublemaker and kind of keeping things interesting, and then of course that would kind of put Bun in some awkward situations.
Yeah.
You can see how that would be a problem.
It's like yelling "fuck the money," basically.
Right.
Going on stage.
Well, if your partner is out there, dissing your sponsors, or you could definitely see how that would put a strain on the relationship.
How many years did he end up serving in jail?
He ended up being incarcerated for 4 years.
And what they end up getting him for?
So that situation, he was charged with aggravated assault, and in Texas, you can be charged with aggravated assault even if there's no bodily injury, nobody got hurt. There was a woman at the mall she was a booster. Like she had a lengthy, arrest history, and she was like a Master P fan or something. This was 4 months after Master P pistol whipped Pimp C. So he's at the mall. This girl starts talking, crazy to him, like starting an argument with him at a shoe store, and she says something to the effect of like, "Well, you're not Master P. Like, you ain't shit," basically. Right. And so they started arguing, and Pimp said that she had a purse or something, so she like reached in her purse. He thought that she had some kind of weapon.
Like a pistol.
So he had a pistol tucked in his jeans, so he lifted his shirt up to show her that he had a pistol. So in Texas, if someone fears for their life and you have a weapon, that's aggravated assault, even if nothing happened. So I mean, to watch how that situation, he got sentenced to 8 years. He could have got 20 years. So I mean, to spend that amount of time in prison for something that relatively minor is kind of crazy. I think.
How did Bun B take it? Was he upset with Pimp, or was he upset with the system?
I think a little bit of both. And that definitely, they had some issues prior to that happening. I don't know too much about the specifics of those, but Bun was definitely upset with Pimp going to prison because it was an avoidable situation. He was on probation. There were definitely mistakes he made in terms of like handling his probation, not doing some things he should have been doing, and so of course it affected the group. It stopped their income. If your partner does something stupid and stops your income, that's going to definitely put a strain on you. But he talked about how he was kind of mad at himself also for not being, maybe more supportive, or he knew that Pimp was struggling with a lot at that time. He had problems with, as you said, he was bipolar. He was dealing with a lot of things, like he was, depression and drugs and things like that prior to him going to prison. And so Bun talked about how he felt like maybe there was more he could have done to help and make sure that the situation didn't go as far as it did.
What happened between Pimp C and Master P? How did that happen, and how did it happen?
Well, a lot of people don't know, like Pimp C produced a lot of the early No Limit stuff that really put them on the map. So his mom, Pimp's mom, talked about how, him and Master P never really got along, because Master P's the kind of, she said that he was very like aggressive and like to kind of give out orders, and he's used to being in charge, and Pimp was not really a person that was gonna take orders from anybody. So they always kind of, according to his mom, like they always kind of clashed, and they never, they worked together, but they never really were close on that level. And then there was something that happened when UGK was recruited to go on the Cash Money tour. So they're opening for Cash Money. And at that time, Cash Money's like the new challenger that's coming to take No Limit spot, is how a lot of people perceived it. And so Master P called the tour promoter who he had worked with, and he said, you need to take UGK off the tour. So this gets back to UGK, and Pimp is upset. Master P's making millions of dollars. Like, why would you want to stop our money? And so there was an incident at the hotel. This is while they're on tour. So his mom was actually their manager. So Pimp's mom is in the hotel room. Master P calls her. Something, some kind of heated discussion goes down, and so he ended up like cussing out Pimp's mom, and Pimp walks in the room to hear Master P on the speakerphone like, fuck you, bitch, or something to that effect. So you can imagine that having your mom as your manager might put you in some awkward positions as well.
That might be the downfall of having your mom be your manager. She might get cussed out.
Right. So so that night, Pimp goes on stage and tells the crowd, fuck No Limit and fuck Master P, and don't buy any more of his music, and don't watch his movies. And so this went on for probably about a year and a half. Pimp was Pimp was dissing No Limit at a lot of his events. So so the story as it was told to me, because obviously I wasn't there, but I definitely did the due diligence to talk to all the people that were there to compile these stories into a book. But the story went that Master P and Pimp C ended up being at the same hotel. I don't know if they followed him or if someone called them. I don't know how they, actually found him. But the story was that Master P and four guys got a key to Pimp's room, come in the room, and, it's late at night. He's with a girl, and these guys have masks on and gloves and the whole nine. So the guys hold him down, supposedly like some No Limit bodyguards, and, Master P pistol whips him. And this, Pimp told a lot of people this story. So, this is according to them. And so he said at the end, P took the mask off to show him who it was, and basically let him know, don't diss me anymore, or, just to let him know that he could kind of let him know that he could get to him if he wanted to. And that's how the story went. And but Pimp kind of like in later years, he kind of would like make jokes about it. Like he kind of they made their peace and they had a conversation after he got out of prison. So they ultimately ended on a good note. But yeah, that's the infamous Master P verse.
Did Pimp C going to prison help him like let bygones be bygones? Did he come out a different man?
I think definitely, yeah. He was a very he was sober. So, when you're sober, you're in a different frame of mind, and you've had a lot of time to think about where you want to go. Even like prior to him coming out, his mom gave me a lot of stuff that he wrote while he was incarcerated. One of the interesting things I came across was student loan applications. He was planning to go back to college. Like right before he got out, that was where his head was at.
Oh shit.
He was reading Forbes magazine and circling, how people made their money and planning to go back to school. So it definitely put him in a different frame of mind, and he was very clear-headed and yeah.
Pimp C started off, he was in band. He was like, he played an instrument.
Yeah, he was like a band nerd in high school with Jerry Curl and the whole nine.
Yeah, I find that a lot of the band kids that came up in band are awesome at mute. They're way better at it, at the rap thing. I think E40 and a lot of those guys came from a band background, and Pimp C is, to me, one of the top rapper producers ever. And I think that band background really helped him. What did he play?
Well, he started playing the trumpet. His father actually played the trumpet He was with Otis Redding, and then prior to he got drafted like 6 months before Otis Redding's plane went down. So
No shit.
if his father hadn't been drafted, there might be no Pimp C. But yeah, his father was a trumpet player. Pimp C was a talented trumpet player, played a lot of other instruments. He talked about how in band class, if people failed their courses, they wouldn't be allowed to participate. So every time somebody failed out, then they would just assign him their instrument. So he knew how to play a lot of different instruments, and that definitely served him well in his production endeavors.
Well, we're not gonna have you tell the whole book, even though this with 700
Those are good
pages.
Cliff Notes, right?
It's the tip of the iceberg. Julia, this is really a great book. I didn't get to read it all, trust me.
Sweet Jones, Pimp
Yeah.
C's true life story.
You can get
People
this.
have told me it's intimidating, but it's a quick read though.
No, it's
not a quick read, but it's a smooth read.
As long as it got pictures in it, I'm good.
Oh yeah, we got you.
It's got
Lots of
words too, so like it's something for everybody.
You might do an audiobook,
Yeah, you should. You should do an audio book. It's got everything from his like handwritten rhymes, the early flyers, just.
My
awesome.
favorite is while he was in prison, the IRS sent him a notice like, "Oh, you owe us this much money." So he just wrote lyrics on the IRS notice.
Oh, I think I'm looking at
That's-
that right now.
That's the best use of IRS paperwork.
That's fucking awesome. Well, everybody, you can get this. This is on Amazon.
Yeah, you can pick it up on Amazon. Sweet Jones, Pimp C's True Life Story. It's also on Kindle, iBooks, if you want to get the digital version. And I just bought your book today, by the way, Hyena.
Thanks.
Got to check that out.
I think
Pick your brain for some publishing tips.
I think you guys need to get the book though. Like you need to own this. This needs to be on your coffee table. Like the art is awesome.
Yeah, the visuals are awesome.
Kindles
And,
are cool, but like y'all need to have this fucking book. So buy them both.
So yeah, pick it up on Amazon. You can follow at Pimp C Book, Instagram and Twitter, and my page is at Julia Beverly, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff.
Julia, thank you so much for coming in and talking.
Oh, definitely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.